Hi, I'm Amber Young,
And I'm Barbara Phillips.
and this is Let's
Let's
Talk
talk
EVM.
EVM.
All right.
You're so cute.
All right, let's get started and get us into another episode. We're very excited to bring us together again. Welcome anyone new, welcome anyone returning, and we'll start with a disclaimer. The disclaimer is said for myself and Barbara, and it is that all of the views that are expressed here are our own and not the views of the American government.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. So, with that, I'm going to start us off with a soapbox moment.
Now, Amber, you always leave people hanging. I mean, they don't even know who our esteemed guest is.
Except there's a title in the
Oh,
Spotify or Apple podcast. Okay. Yeah.
okay. I
So,
know they're chomping at the bit to hear from Daniel Goldsmith. Now I just spilled the beans.
Nice to see you all again. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. We love recurring guests. I just did want to take a minute since we were talking about this topic of metrics, because I have found people mixing the terms metrics and indicators often. They'll get the SPI and the CPI and they'll say those are the EVM metrics, when really the more appropriate term is indicator. Because so I did actually kind of look it up, knowing the difference, but I looked it up anyway. So the metrics are used to track processes, which is our topic here today. But indicators are to interpret the data to show progress toward a goal. So it's sort of a subtle but different paradigm there. So I have a long history with, but not as long as Daniel's or Amber's, with this topic. So I'm excited to weigh in and to hear what you guys have to say. So thank you. And rubric, indicators, and metrics are all confabulated.
I agree. And words matter. So, let's talk a little bit about it. Yeah. All right. So, with that, and actually, I have a little bit more on that, but I might come to an ambling at the end if we have time. We want to have Daniel introduce himself, please, and then we'll get into our topic. And the topic today is going to be the meaning of metrics. Very near and dear to my heart, of my data heart. I think there's a large part of my heart that's just made of data. And we're going to get into the metrics and how those fit in, and a little bit more on that after some introductions.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Amber. Again, Daniel Goldsmith, thanks for having me again with Clear Plane Consulting. Excited to talk about the meaning of metrics today, because I wouldn't say my heart's made of data. But one thing I'm going to quote a good friend of mine, David Kester, and say we are going to talk about the blood draw of data. That's when we get a little bit into the history and where this came from. So I think it's important that we kind of address where metrics originated from, and I'm talking from a general government perspective concerning earned value management, where they came from, the original intent of those metrics, and kind of, what's going on now, and how do we get back to the original intent? So I think that's what we're kind of focus on today.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So with that, I'd like us to start with a little bit on the origin of the metrics, a little history lesson. So if Daniel, you don't mind giving us a little background on the metrics, and I guess we could chime in, Barbara, you and I, if we have anything to interject, but Daniel has a few. Yeah.
Well, I think just before Daniel starts, I think one thing we haven't even done yet is, what is the acronym? What kinds of metrics are we talking about? What organization do they belong to? What's the standard? What's the acronym we all use? DECM. What does it mean? We didn't even say that.
Good point. What we're talking mainly about today is compliance metrics. And DECM, like you just mentioned, stands for the DCMA Earned Value Management Compliance Metrics, DECM, DECM. So we will get into that. I think before we even get into that, it's important to kind of get into the first metrics that we're all still using and familiar with, the 14-point analysis.
But I just want to say, it's not just about the DECM. We're not only talking DCMA. We're talking compliance, earned value compliance metrics generally.
Yes. That's it. That's a good point. So Anything else, Barbara, or can I get?
I know, now that we finished correcting you, Daniel, go ahead, try.
Perfect.
Go ahead, try.
Thank you, Barbara. So the 14-point analysis was, I can't recall. I believe Navarre back in the day is the one that originated it, but a lot of the credit goes to DCMA because it's often referred to as the DCMA 14-point. But there was 14 different metrics looking at in your schedule, looking at your critical path, looking at your logic, your constraints, all that kind of stuff, and it was really good because first of all, it was easy to remember. 14-point analysis. You could get a schedule, you could have it exported in Excel, or you could do it in Project. And it was an easy way to quickly gauge the mechanics of the schedule. Okay. Which was great because before you go into a CAM interview or to discuss, the schedule with a planner or anything like that, you could say, hey, I ran the 14-point analysis. You've got such and such amount of missing logic. You've got all these hard constraints. You've got, start to starts, finishes to finishes, these other type of logic connectors, and your critical path doesn't look right. I'm just summarizing from the 30,000 foot view, but it was a good way to start that conversation to figure out if the schedule could be relied upon. So I think that was, in my opinion, that was a huge leap in just opening up the schedule while we're sticking with the schedule example and just running through and picking various tasks or activities to try and guess where there might be an issue or if the overall schedule looked good. So it was that first, we'll call it a risk indicator, if I can.
Why do you think it stopped being used?
Well, I don't think it stopped being used. I still hear it around, being used quite a bit. But the next, go ahead, Amber.
I'm not sure. Did we say approximately when that was created?
I don't know the date. Early 2000s my memory doesn't go that far back.
Okay, and so then we were thinking about the 14-point assessment. There is an evolution from there. What is the next phase of the evolution of the compliance metrics?
Yeah, so around the 2010, 2011, 2012 timeframe, at that time I was working at DCMA, there was something that we called the pilot program that we worked on with various contractors, and we wanted to take the 14 points to really the next level. And it was really all earned by looking at compliance. We wanted to take it to that next level. So, this took us over a year to sit down. And like I said at the beginning, Dave Kester at the time used the metaphor of blood draw. And what he wanted to do was it's like going to, Quest or go in the hospital, take a draw of this data. What are all the different things that we can find out from this sample of data? Okay. And we came up with, 150, 160, something like that. I don't remember the exact number of metrics that tested the majority of the 32 guidelines. And the point and intent was not to say you failed test 1, 2, 3, your system is non-compliant. The point was up to that point, a lot of the ways that we were assessing systems was we were doing CAM interviews and we would ask a lot of basic questions. Do you know the definition of a control account? Can you show us some examples? And right, wrong, or indifferent, it was almost like a fishing expedition to try and drill down and figure out. And we were successful with it, but we wanted to get it to more of a science and looking at the areas that had the highest amount of risk to the data or had the biggest impacts. So kind of jumping around a little bit, but that was the impetus of coming up with these metrics. And so we had developed a system or a series of metrics that could take a sampling of data and say, okay, we can test the majority, not every single guideline of the 32 out of the EIA 748, but the majority, and come up and say, okay, all these areas have flagged or tripped a metric. This is what we need to go talk about. So if none of the schedule metrics tripped, we'll still probably ask a few questions on that, but that doesn't need to be the focus of everything. We saw that in the change area, there was a lot of trips. So that's where we want to focus talking to the CAMs on, hey, how are you doing baseline changes, for example? So that was the evolution and like how we got to that point. And of course, there's been adaptations and updates from the Department of Energy. DCMA has made several revisions since then. So there's been evolutions, but the same basic premise is, I would say, pretty much universally used. Would you say that, Amber? Like for doing reviews and assessing systems?
I definitely think that the same premise is being used. And I think there's certain things that come to mind when it comes to the use of metrics. And there's been aspects of and we're going to get into this after the little bit of history here, but how are they being applied? How are they being interpreted? How are they being integrated within the systems of the contractors? So from the surveillance all the way down, how are these metrics having influence? So that's really important. I guess I want to see, did we get into the why? Like why we heard blood draw, right? But any other impetus for the pilot that you remember?
Well, there was, and I'm just going to talk in vaguely, dare I say, complaints or grumblings, if you will, from industry, and rightfully so. At the time, that not everything was being done consistently when assessing systems. That was a huge battle, I guess you could say, at the time. And so that was another reason, was we wanted there to be a consistent approach to looking at the data in order to formulate the questions to really for the ultimate goal of assessing the compliance of a system, making sure that, and it's not just compliance for compliance sake. I know we probably said this over and over throughout the podcast, but to make sure that the data that the system is producing can be relied upon for decision making, which we see at this point in time right now is more important than ever. Not just that we're doing it to go through the motions, but hey, do we know how much this thing's going to cost and when it's going to finish, whatever it is?
After you, Amber.
Well, we have a couple of questions coming in. I'm just going to give a little plug for where we are. So we are currently in the I don't know how to say it. It's the lesser known great city of
Chillicothe,
Ohio. And we are conducting our podcast live from Chillicothe at the moment, and it won't be broadcast live. And we have an audience who may or may not be named, and we're getting questions from the audience. And so we have a couple that just came in, and I guess we're just going to ask them. So Daniel, why don't you just ask the question?
Yes, literally, and we're not making this up. It was delivered on a napkin. First
all the
question,
best questions are.
and this is really relevant actually to what we've been talking about. So this is good. Have the number of metrics grown to be too much? So that's a great question, because I started with 14, but again, we wanted to expand to more than just scheduling. So I don't remember the exact number, but it fluctuated. It went from 150, 160. I think at one point we were up to 190. I know when DOE first adopted metrics, they were in like the 400s or something. Those have been cut way down. I think DCMA is down to like 139, 140, something like that. I'm sure the newest revisions, maybe one or two off, so don't quote me. And I know DOE's gone down to what, Amber? 187. So it's fluctuated like anything else. Now, can it be too much? Absolutely, like anything else, right? For example, if the minimum requirements at the control account level, do we need to go to the element of cost level? Now, I'm saying that in generalities. There are certain things, of course, you're going to look at the element of cost, but for other things, do you need to? Like anything else, what is the intent of the metrics, right? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Okay. So is there a limit where there are too many? Yes. Can I tell you what that number is?
Yeah, sure. Tell me.
No, I can't tell you, because it's not, there's different things you want to look for depending on the review, depending on this, that, and the other. But what I think is important is the intent of the metrics. And so, yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
I was only going to say, I did sit on the health metrics committee at NDIA, even though I was not representing a company. And they were really, the companies that were on that committee are really focused that every metric costs money.
That's a great.
I wasn't really focused on the sheer number. like you guys are talking about. But once they said that, I was like, oh, wow, that is a little bit something to think about. Like, yeah, if you're looking at a sample versus the whole data set, really, where are we with this? But still, you got to go through the motions. Somebody's got to run it. Somebody's got to document it. You have to, all the things. And I thought, well, yeah, there is something to just the sheer volume. They were always writing to DCMA saying, scratch this one, scratch that one, because, well, just for that reason, that it costs money.
Would you say, Barbara, every action creates a reaction?
Did I take that class in high school? Wait. I'm not the physicist here. Some of us actually studied
I wouldn't say it creates. I mean, there's an equal and opposite force, right?
There you go. It's a force.
Yeah. There are forces in act. This is the way.
Yeah, no, jokes aside though, what you're saying, what they said is an excellent point. If you think about it, for example, if a metric has a threshold of 5%, wherever that came from, that's not the point I'm trying to make. We're not looking for perfection in systems because that's not realistic. What we want though is good systems that produce good data. So there may be anomalies here and there, but overall we know we can trust what the data is saying. When you look for perfection, that means if a metric trips and there's 585 whatevers that trip, and you give that to the contractor, they're going to go fix every single one of them. Or maybe when they fix the majority of them, the system produces good data. So it's that eternal question of what's good enough. But to your point though, when the government's saying you trip 600 times, the contractor's going to go fix 600 items, right? So point heard.
Yeah. Well, I did also want to harken back to your comments earlier in the 2012 period. I did used to go to those NDIA meetings, and I mean, DCMA was in that room, Dave Kester in particular, and industry was in the other room, and they were all sequestered, whispering, we're going to get them, we're going to tell them this, we're going to fix that, we're going to escalate. I mean, it was really combative. And I do remember poor Dave getting some barbs at those meetings. And yeah, I mean, it was very contentious. But to your point, just to reiterate what you were saying, Daniel, that the industry was like, this isn't objective. It's inconsistent across those 6 areas. You get this fellow in, I don't even know the jargon, but, and 5% is fine. You go to another area, if it's 5.1%, you're
right
out. They're not rounding down to give you the credit, that kind of thing. And it was becoming, very subjective. So I think I really admire DCMA for taking this on and trying to objectify something that really has a lot of
not objectify.
Oh, I forgot we don't use that word.
Well, but
trying to make objective things that really can be subjective, and it's hard to do. And I just was waiting for you. I know we have a series of questions, but waiting, Daniel, to hear about the evolution from 2019 to, I'm going to say 2023, when it really significantly matured in my empirical experience with it. So
well, and so yeah, let's skip to 2023/time now. I think, in my opinion, because everybody's got a different opinion, but in my opinion, for the most part, I think a lot of the metrics have matured to a stage where most people accept the metrics, most, not all, and accept the thresholds. Again, I'm not saying it's 100% right, wrong, or different. We're always making, subtle changes. I shouldn't say we, but the people who are in charge of it are making subtle changes. So they're always going to be evolving a little bit. But for the most part, everybody accepts that's what we run. The problem, if I can kind of transition, that we're running into now is how those metrics are being used. Remember, the original intent was a consistent way to start the conversation to assess if a system is compliant. The intent was never you trip metric 1, 2, 3, we're writing you a car based off that metric alone and your system is disapproved. And the reason I want to bring that up is just based off various things that I can think we're seeing. It's not that extreme, but a lot of times metrics themselves are being referenced and it's not being brought, that full circle isn't being made where it's bringing it back to the one requirement and to the intent of that's behind that requirement. So you look at the EIA 748, you got a series of 32, soon to be 27. Well, actually it was published in February, so now it's 27 guidelines. Each of those guidelines, if you read the actual standard, is a sentence, and it gives you your management system must meet the intent of this. It's not a specific prescription, do this, and this, but meet the intent of this statement. So the test is supposed to say, okay, this part of the data appears to be flawed. Go talk to the control account managers or the planners or the finance or the program manager and figure out what's going on. And I think we're starting to lose sight of that later step and just saying, it tripped, here's your car, fix it. What do you think, Amber?
I think I'm seeing a little bit of a different take too, where I believe I'm seeing that there's deeper understanding and conversation around data. I think EVM has evolved and matured at the level where we now have a common language that we're talking around. We've had these metrics in the system, right, in the blood for many years now. And now when we're doing that blood draw, it's a much more educated blood draw. There's more to talk about. There's more awareness. There's more meaning. We're getting deeper in our root cause analysis and understanding. And I think the IP2 meter definitely takes it to the next level. One of the movements with the IP2 meter is in the IP2 meter, which is the integrated program and project management, maturity and environment total risk rating. So maturity and environment. We now talk not about compliance. Now we're talking about maturity. And I'm part of a movement to change the language to go
I want to
away
be in a movement with you.
Yeah, not a compliance metric, but a maturity metric.
Well, and don't forget about all the tools that have come into play now too. Okay, which I think gets to the misuse of the metrics, because it's so easy now to get so many metrics running so quick. You've got Winsight, Empower, ACE, which is Aztec's compliance tool. You've got all these tools that can quickly assess a lot of metrics and spit out a lot of stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I see you failed 25 areas. You guys suck. Can I say that on here?
Yeah.
When it's like, well, wait a minute, that the tools are great and this is great. This should free up a lot of time to formulate the right questions to assert if the system's doing what it's supposed to do. We're losing sight of that. So these tools are meant to aid us to get to that point. We're just kind of forgetting the second part. You know what I mean?
We don't have any psychologists on the call here today, but one of the things that goes south, we have had a number of people that talk to that. And one of the things that goes south is this red, yellow, green. Nobody wants to be on their report card. Nobody wants to be yellow. Nobody wants to be red, even though red is perfectly fine. Like you said, your threshold is 5 and you're 5.1. Like we kind of made like a universal decision, even though, sometimes we use a lot of Empower and the Delta Fuse tool. And, those tools don't necessarily help you get to that rounding error. But when we get the data in the spreadsheet, we're like, hey, let's just take out the decimal. What is that? Call it a day. You know what I mean? Yes, it tripped, but it's a rounding error almost, or it could trigger the conversation, like you said. But we also do invite DCMA and their accomplices to a quarterly meeting we have at my office where we talk about these things. And to their credit, they're constantly telling us exactly what you're telling us, Daniel, which is that it's a starting point. It's a risk assessment. It's an opportunity for a conversation, maybe not a deep dive, but a light dive. Like, hey, let's figure out what's going on. Is there an issue with float, or is it because of XYZ? Is there an issue with actuals coming in with no performance? Well, let's look at that. Is it, and just provoke the conversation to get that credibility. But people don't like being read. We need a new series of
Barbara, can I interject something you just said that was brilliant? Because you're brilliant.
Oh my
Barbara.
God. Wait. Let me repeat it. What did I say?
Yeah, you're brilliant. What you were keying in on is the conversation, right? We've lost that part. I don't want to say people are hiding behind the metrics, but they're just the answer is 5% and you fail. It's like, what happened to that conversation to say, well, look, this is the project that we're doing. Let me tell you why this is the right way to run our project. Just another reason EV gets a bad name, and instead of letting your earned value management system act as your integrated program management system, using it to make decisions. We're just metricizing it, running the numbers, writing it, walking away. Oh, you fixed the numbers, you're good to go. Here's your stamp. So kudos, Barbara. You brought up the conversation.
Well, what about gaming it? Oh, sorry.
No, wait. Okay, we've had this conversation, Barbara, that gaming has two angles to it. Remember, we talked about
game, by the way. I can't even go to a gambling table. We were just talking about this. I can't even do it. Even Monopoly money, I can't even put it down. I can't even spend somebody else's money at the craps table. I can't even do it.
Because you can't let go of the money?
I can't stand the risk. I can't stand it.
Don't want it. Okay. Risk averse, beyond risk averse. The risk will not see it. Got to see the risk, Barbara. Got to participate. Okay. But gamification, good part, eliciting all these ways to make things a motivating factor. Bad part, finding loopholes and doing bad behavior. Yeah. So you got to make sure you're going one way, not the other way. But the conversation I was going to go back to and say that is IP2 a meter and the environment. Amen. So part of the methodology that we've learned as certified facilitators, all of us, almost Daniel. He's like, oh, Daniel, 75%. He's almost there. He's almost there. Yeah. Because maturity equals a function of environment. Part of that methodology is to conduct an environment assessment, conduct a maturity assessment, bring them together during a root cause workshop where you're looking at what are the root cause factors that are environment factors for the maturity issues and deficiencies.
I think it's good to note too that you don't have to have the government do that.
No.
The great thing about that, and we're pushing that tool and
no, but the conversation.
Yeah.
The conversation. Yeah. Where do you have that conversation?
We are pushing the use of it, not because we're facilitators. You don't have to use facilitators to use it. You can just use it. It's in the public domain. I mean, it's exactly. Arizona State. It's available to any and all. We've told people that already.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Just want it noted. You can run it on yourself, and it's but you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, which is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. So,
well, that's why when you're doing those interviews and you get 2 or 3 or 8 people in one of those stakeholder groups, that kind of keeps it honest. Oh, that so-and-so person is in my same role. They're going to answer this way. I'm going to be the outlier if I don't answer as I know it to be the case. It's kind of it's a social forcing function, group dynamic kind of a thing. Yeah.
But I think, and I know we're getting long-winded here. We gave a little bit of the history. We gave the intent. We gave kind of where it's at and where we think it should go. I think you could do many more episodes on this, and tons of people have different opinions on metrics, the levels that you should go to, thresholds, blah, blah, blah. I think you guys could do many more, and I think a lot of people would find that really interesting. But I think this was just a good get everybody to just think about it. It's like metrics are great. Like anything else, any other technology, it's got its place, but it has to be utilized with the appropriate intent.
I would just add before, Amber, that when we put our dialogue, or we, meaning you, actually, when we put the little write-up in, maybe people aren't really even familiar with what DECM is. And we could give that link to the DCMA website.
As well as the Department of Energy.
And the Department of Energy. And Department of Energy's metrics are also available through the Empower tool and perhaps other tools.
Correct, yes.
So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. And I fear that we've narrowed our audience to overly narrowed them, but...
Yes, we definitely should. We will. We will put the links in there.
Thank you.
So there's that. And a little bit of housekeeping on our website. We do have a website. It's letstalkevm.com. But I have not been keeping it up, so I'll do better. I will, if I get a pull from the audience, I will make sure it's more maintained. I haven't been getting a pull, so I haven't been maintaining it. So it's on me, but this is a passion project. So it's a little bit of back and forth. I'll give if you guys would like me to. So I I did have a couple of closing amblings and then pass it around for last thoughts from the group. This is a really exciting topic, and I have many, 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 many things to say, but I want to end on two amblings, and they're actually history, and they're how metrics have brought us together. My memory of metrics with both Barbara and Daniel. So with Barbara, metrics are actually how I first met Barbara. Barbara, when I first met her, we sat at the same table at an NDIA IPMD, Integrated Project Management Division meeting, and Barbara was sitting next to John McGann. Is that correct? That sounds correct,
Yes,
right?
it is correct.
And yes, and Barbara was I did not know. She was very nice, and we spoke, but I didn't
I'm
realize.
always very nice when you first meet me.
What a big shot she was. Day 2, she gets up and she starts presenting and gave a whole spiel on her metrics and the things that she's done to break them out and conquer them and divide them.
I wish I could take full credit for that. Oh,
that was
man, I wish I could take credit for that. Yeah.
And at the time, I was working on metrics and doing algorithm and testing of metrics inside of the ACE tool, the Aztec ACE tool. And so I was all about metrics. And so I was very excited. I was like, who's this metrics gal? She's awesome. I want to know her. And so that's how I met Barbara. And then with Daniel and I had the same legend mentor, and I worked with Jim Henderson.
Oh my gosh, this term legend.
Aligning the metrics, the Department of Energy metrics against the IP2M meter. So one of my first roles was working with Jim, and we were like little lawnmower ninja people, getting the metrics aligned, and the current alignment of the DOE metrics to the IP2M meters. Largely Jim and I working together. And then I learned later that Jim, I believe, was one of Daniel's mentors. Yep. So we have a metrics mentor.
Are we like all like black belts? Are we brown belts? I don't know. Like how is that in the martial arts world? Data ninjas. No, great conversation today. As always, really appreciate you guys, gals, having me. Always love to talk metrics. I mean, Amber, we spent a lot of time working DOE metrics, So yeah, metrics are, again, great. But if you can take anything as just, with great power comes great responsibility.
Boom, mic drop.
It is not taken lightly.
I have no contribution after that profound statement from Daniel.
Wow.
It comes great responsibilities. Yes.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to sign off. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
All right. And that's all from Barbara. You hit it.
Let's talk EVM. Well, it does always make us laugh, so I think it's worth it.